Hey guys, it's Kalene with gotimetraining, and I'm so excited to have Dr. Jeff Davis from Prairie Health and Wellness back with us today. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we've done an interview before in the past, and anytime I get together with you, whether it's for interviews or lunch, I could just talk forever. So I polled our clients as well as our staff yesterday and the past week to see what questions they would have for you.
Great.
And we have a ton of questions. So we'll try and keep this short and sweet for you, but I know it's going to be long and super informative. But I want to start with stress. So we'll kind of go there, and then we'll move into gut health, and then we'll move into diabetes, and then we'll move into nutrition. So for those of you watching, know that we're going to start with stress, and then gut health, and then diabetes, and then we're going to move into nutrition. So if one of these does not apply to you, just fast forward to that part. So people come to us and they want to lose weight.
Sure.
But we live in a society that's just full of information coming at us 24/7. We have kids that we go home to. We have jobs that are stressful and demanding. So when it comes to weight loss, how does stress affect weight loss?
Well, you know, one of the things I tell patients is that our bodies really on the inside are living in an older time. Our genetics have not caught up with modern life. So we're really designed to fight the lions, the tigers, the bears, to survive in the cold, to survive without food for a period of time. And we're in this unique time in our development as humans where there aren't any lions and tigers and bears. And we're really not having to fight for food anymore. So food's never been more available and plentiful. But we do still have some of those same stress signals. And I always tell people that the inside of our body doesn't recognize that it's not the lion attacking us. It's the deadline from work, or maybe it's the lack of good nutrition. That's a stress signal. Lack of sleep, which I know is one of the questions we'll be talking about soon. So the inside of our body has a finite or limited way of responding to an infinite number of stressors. So those stressors can come in lots of different forms, but the body's goal is to survive that. And that's actually built into every single cell in our body. There's a great paper, if people really want to geek out on this stuff. It was written by Robert Navio, and it's called The Cell Danger Response Theory. And it's a phenomenal paper. It's very technical. I've read it 3 or 4 times and I still don't completely understand it. But it talks about that individual cell's response to stress. Every single cell in our body has that. So those stress signals come in, for instance, and cortisol is a stress hormone, for instance. So cortisol is fantastic when you have the car that flips over and the mom's trying to drag her kids out. She's able to do amazing things with that cortisol because it goes into epinephrine and it's able to make her make quick reactions. But if she did that every single day, the cortisol is going to have a negative effect. So we know that cortisol can actually kill gut bacteria. We know that cortisol is a hormone that stores fat. So this is a really important one that I tell patients. If they're stressed out, and when patients come to you for weight loss, what they're probably saying is, I want to lose fat. I mean, I have yet to have somebody come in and go, my bicep is really too big, I'd like it to be smaller, or my legs are too big, I want them to be smaller.
And I think it's, I want to lose fat, but I want to feel better. And, and they're not quite in tune, or they don't quite understand that a lot of what they want to feel better is just relieving that stress that they are carrying on their shoulders every day.
And so if you put the cart before the horse and make fat loss the priority, you have to go back and say, well, why is the fat there? And if you're stressed and you have a lot of cortisol going through your system, cortisol is going to say, well, I'm going to take calories and I'm going to put them in a storage place so that we can handle stress tomorrow. And so cortisol is always sort of the survival hormone. And so when you're in survival mode, that's not when you're building lean body mass. That's when you're trying to survive attacks. So it's really important for people, if they're wanting to lose weight, in particular fat loss, that they really get stress under control from all sources.
And I see this a lot. So clients will come, and you guys might be one of them, where they come to us and they want to lose weight. And so we're like, okay, this is the protocol that we're going to take to lose weight. You need to start exercising. You need to drink more water. You need to get more sleep, which we'll talk about in a minute. I'm huge on meditation and calming the mind, and really that came from you and Jolene at your office. But they look at all this and they're like, oh my gosh, that's way too much. So we really try and take it step by step and baby step it, because if they're already stressed out and we say, in order to change your lifestyle, you're going to exercise 5 days a week and you're going to eat now all these healthy foods and completely overhaul your lifestyle, it adds more stress.
Sure.
So our approach is a little bit different, but I see it with people outside of the studio that try diet program after diet program, and they never succeed. And I truly believe, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that it comes from that overwhelm. Maybe it's not a good plan to begin with, but they're overwhelming themselves with even more stress.
Yeah, get back to the fundamentals. These diets that people try, the problem with them is they're not sustainable for the long run. So you've seen the cookie diet, you've seen the watermelon diet. People will do these, crazy cleanses, and all of those things actually increase the stress that the body feels because you're not providing the right nutrients and building blocks. And so, we really try to take people back to the basics, and you have to individualize that, just like you guys do here. You have somebody who has a hurt shoulder, you're going to modify what they do. So if we see somebody that comes in and we know that they have pre-diabetes or insulin resistance, we're going to modify what we do with them.
Yeah.
So I think that's always important, is to realize that it doesn't always fit everybody, this one plan. And so you have to think about what the individual needs.
So in regard to stress, we're going to switch over to sleep here in a minute, but the foundation is people need to start any program, any weight loss program, first with the foundation, getting their stress under control, looking at where they're spending their time during their day, where they can eliminate things that are causing them stress, and then jump into taking the next step to exercise and nutrition, because that's when they're really going to benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Start with the building blocks.
Cool. So let's talk about sleep, because I know sleep is a huge component of this. You guys taught me that, and I was like, no, I'll sleep when I die. And I feel better than ever when I finally took you and Jolene's advice to sleep and not feel guilty about getting a good night's sleep or resting.
Well, I think the data is overwhelming, and really, when you look at even kids in college, they did a study where they looked at performance on test scores, and they looked at kids who had studied enough and felt prepared for the test, but didn't get enough sleep, and they compared that to a group that they said, doesn't matter whether you feel prepared or not, at this hour you have to go to sleep. And so those kids that came in well rested but feeling unprepared actually scored higher on the tests than the kids that came in feeling tired but prepared for the test. So we know sleep is important for brain function, and I think we see the same thing in muscles. I think what's really fun when you're wanting to really optimize, whether it's training or whatnot, is look to the people that are best in that particular field. So if it were for exercise or performance, you would look at Olympic athletes. I mean, these are people who have trained their entire lives. They're at the very apex pinnacle of what they do, and find out how they're handling stress. Olympic athletes frequently will get 10 to 12 hours of sleep a night. I cannot imagine what that would feel like to get 10 to 12 hours. Oh my gosh,
I'd be so rested.
It's amazing, but it kind of makes sense. I mean, they're doing things during the day that's signaling their body to make changes, and a lot of that happens at night. Our growth hormone peaks. Cortisol actually peaks in sleep and does a different function while we're sleeping. We have insulin-like growth factor. We have all these things that are being produced, neurohumoral signals that move together to actually build lean body mass. So if you're not sleeping, all of that work you're doing during the day is not going to do anything in the end.
Yeah. So it's just like stress. If they don't get their stress under control, if they don't get their sleep under control, people push so hard in the gym, and they wonder why they're never getting results. And it's probably two things. Stress is so high in their life, and they're getting 4, maybe 5 hours of sleep, and they're running on empty constantly.
Yeah. It's another stress signal. All of the cells are feeling that stress, so they're all going to have that cell danger response theory and modify what they do. I think the absolute first building block is sleep. And we tell people that all the time, no matter what they're coming to us for help with. We say, if you're not sleeping well, we're going to be spinning our wheels on all this other stuff. So sleep's foundational.
For sure. So I know a few things when I met with Dr. Davis and Jolene at Prairie Health and Wellness when I was pushing and not sleeping, and I said, you guys are crazy, I'll sleep when I die. A few things that I did to get a good night's sleep was shut off my TV, and I didn't look at the computer or phone after a certain hour. If I could not fall asleep, I would just read a book. A book always makes me, when the lights are dim, it makes me fall asleep. And then I'm doing something good for myself too. I'm learning before I go to bed. I'm always constantly learning.
Yeah, again, go back to what our old genes are looking at. So sort of look at what an ancient man had for signals for sleep. So there's three things I tell people. It's the decrease in the amount of available light. It's the change in the color of light. So we go from more blue like we have this morning to more of an orange-yellow light in the evening. And then it's a decreasing temperature. So I'll tell patients, make your room as dark as possible.
Yes.
Lower the temperature of your bedroom. Sleep in about 65 degrees if you can. And then really avoid the blue light.
Okay.
So those three cues are very strong signals that tell our body, go seek a cave, go seek, a place of protection to spend the night. And that's how we survived.
Yeah.
So we can sort of use those cues in our modern life. But the lights that we have bombarding us right now are blue light. And blue light stops the production of melatonin. So candlelight is a very orange, warm, low level of light and actually supports the creation of melatonin. Melatonin is a sleep hormone that helps us not only go to sleep, but stay asleep.
Yeah, and so just like anything, when you're trying to set your sleep schedule and get more sleep, you have to stay consistent with it over time. The first few nights, the first few weeks, probably even the first few months are going to be difficult for you. But do what Jeff and I just said and implement those every single night. You're going to fail a few times, just like you fail a few times with weight loss, but over time it'll make a really, really big difference.
And I think trying to get patients off of the sleep aids that they're using. So a lot of people are using Benadryl, a ton of people are using Ambien. And there may be times when those things are appropriate, but I always tell patients, you're not Ambien deficient. We can start at that point and say, you're not Ambien deficient, you don't need this drug, let's figure out how we can do this naturally.
Right. Okay, so let's switch over from sleep and stress, which will kind of go into what we're going to talk about, gut health.
Yeah.
So I know personally I've dealt with it. I know mine's been from stress and lack of sleep and just too overtraining, not good nutrients. But so many clients deal with it. So many people deal with it. Why is it so prevalent in our society right now, and what can we do to help?
There's a lot of things that probably lead to this gut dysbiosis is what we call it. So that's a dysfunction in the bacteria that's inside of us. We know that we have more cells that are bacterial in us than we have cells that are human. And we're only now scratching the surface and learning about what those bacteria do for us. But they help create vitamins in some cases. So for instance, when a baby is born, they're vitamin K deficient. Where do they get vitamin K? Well, once the bacteria in their gut start propagating and growing, those bacteria provide vitamin K. It's an essential thing required for blood clotting. So that's one example of maybe 100 of what bacteria do for us. They're our first line of defense. They actually help repair cell membranes. So why have we lost some of that? Well, antibiotics are probably the biggest one. And it's not just the antibiotics that we take when we go to the doctor and we're sick. It's the antibiotics that are present in food. In fact, in the United States, 70% of the antibiotic use is in our animal feed. And they use it as a way of promoting growth and preventing sickness. When you take cattle, for instance, and you put them in a small little feedlot, they're stressed and now they're more susceptible to disease. Well, that's an expensive time to lose a head of cow, because that's at their maximal weight, that's their maximal value. You don't want to lose them. So what do? You put some antibiotics in there, make sure they don't get sick.
Yep.
Those antibiotics stay in the meat. A lot of times they're unchanged, and then we're consuming it. So we're not eating as much fermented food. So fermentation was a way that we would take food and we would use bacteria to preserve it. The bacteria would take the sugar out of the food. They would create lactic acid, they would create acetic acid, and that was a food preservative. So it's a natural way of preserving food and also getting good bacteria inside of us. We don't eat those foods very much anymore. We have refrigeration, we have irradiation, we have all these things that sterilize food, but we depend on bacteria for so many things that we're sterilizing our environment. Hand sanitizer, I tell patients, don't use it. You can just use water, soap, and even then we probably are too clean.
Yes.
You look at countries where they're dirty and they have fewer cases of autoimmune disease. They did a study where they looked at households that had dishwashers versus those that hand wash. The ones that had dishwashers had higher rates of asthma, had higher rates of autoimmune disease because their environment was too clean. So I think we're a little bit obsessed with this cleanliness, and I think it's taken a hit on our gut and the bacteria. So gut health is another foundational thing. It's our largest interface with the outside world.
Right.
So
what are a few things that people can do? I know you talked about many things that affect our gut health.
yeah.
And I can tell you, probably most of our clients aren't going to get rid of their dishwasher.
Right.
Or most of our viewers aren't going to get rid of their dishwasher just because it's convenient. So what are some things that we can do on a daily basis, like adding fermented foods or backing down on our processed foods?
Sure. So I think avoiding the things that are taking a hit on the gut biome. So biome is the bacteria that's inside of us. If you can avoid taking antibiotics, I know it's hard. You're sick. You go to the doctor's busy. He wants to give you something. I mean, we're giving people, and so we want to give you amoxicillin. I think if patients will stop demanding those things, doctors will feel better about saying no and not giving people antibiotics. So the first thing I say is recognize the signs of a cold. If you have body aches and chills and your whole body is hurting, that's not bacterial. That's a virus. Don't go in for the antibiotic, the Z-Pak, and all those things. One course of an antibiotic can disrupt your gut biome for a year.
Oh my!
So it sets you back a long ways.
Yeah.
Avoid the foods that are killing your bacteria. So the high sugar, the fructose corn syrup, and all those things are growing the wrong kind of bacteria. Eat a lot of soluble fiber. So soluble fiber is the fiber in plants that grow above ground. So not potatoes, but things like
the green
leafy, the cauliflower, the kale, the broccoli. All of those things promote healthy growth of bacteria, and you can do wonders for your gut by just switching to eating more vegetables.
So one thing with that, I know a lot of people don't like the taste of it because they're so used to eating out, and the taste of kale is like gross to them, or the taste of spinach is gross to them. And I used to feel that way. Now I've grown to love it. So one simple thing that you can do is put it into your smoothie in the morning. The smoothie completely hides the taste of those vegetables, and then you're getting all the benefits from not only the smoothie that you're drinking, if it's a healthy smoothie, but all the vegetables that you have in it.
Yeah, and we tell patients all the time that your brain will begin to change as you get off of the refined carbohydrates and sugars. You'll start to find a natural sweetness that's present in food. And so we want people to learn how to cook their vegetables, learn how to eat better. So again, food is foundational. So food, sleep, and gut. Those are three huge things.
Fruits will start to taste like dessert. And side note, it was something that you said earlier. I really enjoyed the first time I went in to see you as my doctor. I was so used to going into the doctor, and I would leave with some sort of prescription to help with whatever symptom I went in for.
Sure.
And now I go to the doctor, I go to see you or Jolene, because I'm looking at the future. I'm not trying to cure something that has happened to me.
Right.
I'm trying to stay healthy, do things now that will prevent things in the future. And I love that you practice that way.
Well, so we try to get away from this pill for a problem approach. And I think it's tough because we have so many pills for so many problems. When you watch TV and every other ad is about, do you have this disease? We'll talk to your doctor about this drug.
And then all the side effects.
Sure. And in functional medicine, which is what we practice in our office, we really try to say, why are we here today? What brought us to this point? What's the root cause of what's going on? Let's go backwards. So oftentimes we'll ask patients, when did you last feel good? And sometimes people have to go all the way back to high school and say, well, I last felt good in high school. All right, well, let's start there and go forward and see what were the things that happened in your life that brought you physically to where you are today.
Right. So. And you have to know that it's a journey. Like, this approach is best for you long term. It's what we do at the studio. We're focusing on lifestyle habits. It takes longer than a pill does, but it's going to be so much more beneficial for you in the future. So now that we're talking about gut health, a lot of people have bowel problems.
Huge
Can
problems.
you talk on that?
So I think we see two broad categories, and irritable bowel is how a lot of people describe this, but irritable bowel falls into two broad categories of constipation and diarrhea. And for a long time, that was really confusing for me, how two completely different presentations could be one disease. And what we've learned in the last 10 years about irritable bowel is that it can be fixed. In most people, there's a root cause, and that root cause is a dysbiosis in the small bowel. So the small bowel is the longest part of our bowel. It has a very narrow lumen, and it's, for the most part, has no bacteria in it. Any bacteria that are found in there are usually just on their way to the colon. That's where we hold most of our good bacteria. But there are things that happen maybe from stress or infection, antibiotics, where bacteria move up into the small bowel. And depending on what kind of bacteria are growing there, you're either going to have constipation, so those bacteria produce methane gas, or you have diarrhea, and those produce hydrogen. So hydrogen makes things move very quickly. The methane gas moves very slowly. And any gas production in the small bowel is going to hurt. And so patients will say, when I eat, I cramp or I bloat, or we frequently hear women will say, I feel like I'm 9 months pregnant again after a meal. So those are all signs of dysbiosis. Those are signs of a condition called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And there are ways that we can test for that, and there are ways that we can fix that. So that's a huge, I think, unaddressed problem in most practices. And we'll have patients who've seen me for years, and we'll just happen to ask them one day about their bowel movements. Say, oh, I have diarrhea all the time. Well, how long has that been a problem? 15, 20 years? And why haven't you talked to me about that? I just thought that that's the way my life was going to be. Yeah, it was normal for them. And so when we fix that problem, a lot of times they'll come back and say, I had no idea that this is what a normal person felt after a meal. And so it's amazing. You get transformational changes when you go back to say, what's causing this particular symptom? Try to get to the root cause.
And for any of you out there that are experiencing this, I know that Dr. Kristen Marvin at your office is she's just great with SIBO and this type of problem. So
she's phenomenal.
You could check her out.
She's a naturopathic doctor, so naturopaths do 4 years of medical school like I do. They learn all the same pathology, they learn anatomy, they learn biochemistry. They're experts in the body's biochemistry. Most naturopaths know more about nutrition than anybody I know. So she's a phenomenal resource in our clinic for patients who are trying to make those lifestyle changes, trying to stay away from using medication. And yes, when it comes to SIBO, Dr. Marvin has a lot of SIBO patients, and she tends to get the most difficult ones in our practice.
So go see her if you have that problem. Okay, so unfortunately we ran out of time. We had so much to talk about today. We got to talk about, oh my gosh, I just drew a blank.
Gut, sleep, foundations of stress.
We got to talk about so
Diabetes is what we missed out on, which is
know.
Probably what we're most passionate about.
Diabetes
so we'll have to
and
save
nutrition.
That for another day.
They go hand in hand.
They really do.
And I promise you, we both have so much that we can talk about when it comes to that, and it's going to be a huge problem. It's not already a huge problem now, but it kind of scares me what it's going to be in the future, maybe past our time. So I will make sure to have Dr. Davis back for a part 2. I thought we had hit it all today, but that's the beauty about when we collaborate. I could just talk to you forever.
It's good. The time goes quickly.
Before we end today, can you tell our clients and our viewers where they can get a hold of you if they want to come see you or want more information?
So our office is located on 21st Street, just east of Greenwich, and or Greenwich if you're from anywhere else in the country. And it's myself. Dr. Marvin is our naturopathic doctor. Jolene Zivnuska is a nurse practitioner with years of experience in women's health. And then we've added Sophia Lyon. She's another nurse practitioner in family medicine. So we all practice an integrative and functional approach to family medicine.
Well, thank you so much for coming
Thanks
on
for
today.
having me.
And thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for part 2 when we talk about diabetes and nutrition.
Looking forward to it.
Yes. Bye, guys.